I love you.
What is going on, ladies and gents, Bears, brothers and sisters from all over the globe, except for Wisconsin? No, but we're back. We're better than ever. I'm Mike Hughes, sitting here with the legend himself from inside the Hoosier Mind, Tony Hollinsworth. Tony, how are we feeling today?
Hey, I'm feeling great, man. I'm not gonna lie. This is my favorite time of year is NFL free agency because all the crazy stuff happens. Everybody loses their mind,
Yeah.
and it just makes the next season so much more exciting. Because, like, man, what's this team gonna do? What's this guy gonna look like in a different uniform now?
And,
What is gonna happen?
I want to ask you something because normally I tread carefully with you because I know
Okay.
you used to be a diehard Cowboys fan,
Yep.
but now this is your first year officially denouncing the Dallas Cowboys until Jerry Jones either departs from this world or departs from the Cowboys organization. So, with this being said, the statement was made. The Cowboys are going all in, and they haven't done a damn thing. Tony, take me through it, brother. How good does it feel to not have to worry about this right now?
I'm not gonna lie. It feels great, man. Like it's funny. So I don't know. Do you remember Kenny? Right? Kenny and I were talking about this.
Oh, Kenny from ASAP.
Yeah, we were talking about this Monday night because I told him that I was no longer a Cowboys fan. He goes, whoa. That's how we got to start this off. Like we got to get the why.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's like, whoa. Like you can't just be throwing this at me and not tell me the why. So
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I'm a millennial Cowboys fan. The last time they went to and won a Super Bowl, I was 1 year old. So I couldn't even remember or enjoy it. And this is the same crap Jerry Jones be doing every single year.
Well,
Is I'm all in to win another Super Bowl. I know the Cowboys can do it. I get great talent. Now we gonna go in for the Super Bowl.
yep.
And you're gonna sit here, you're gonna take a $59 million cap hit from Dak. Now, albeit that's a smart move. Now, a lot of people are gonna say you're nuts. Why are you letting your quarterback take a $60 million hit? Because that proves two things. One, Jerry's saying, Dak, you need to earn your money because you're supposed to be the guy. We paid you all this money before, kind of cap strapped us to start with. I'm not going to extend you to try to alleviate that because then I'm stuck with you and I'm paying you more money and it's just kicking the can down the road. Either basically shit or get off the pot, one of the two. And Jerry's like, nah, I'm prepared to fully eat that hit. We'll go in with what we got. And if it don't work, we blowing it up and we start something new next year.
Right.
So it to me is nice. Is also going to be nice coming this next season because I can watch I can watch Cowboys games and I don't have to have a heart attack every single game because they're going to go into it and it's like, man, is Dallas going to win or not? I don't know. They're 0-16. They should win it and Dallas will figure out a way to get blown out like 38-3 for whatever reason. They'll figure out a way to screw it up. So
for sure.
My heart's going to thank me this coming season too because I don't have to have a heart attack every single game.
No, without a doubt. And, I think a big thing with that Lance stuff, and we talked about Trey Lance and what he was going to be able to do for the Dallas Cowboys. I think that speaks volumes to them taking that cap hit on Dak. He's like, okay, well, you know what? If you can't prove it to us down the line, we have Trey Lance here. We have other options. There are other guys available. Now, I do think it's crazy to say you're all in and not make any big free agency moves. Now, there's still, rumors that maybe one of the Bosa brothers are available or Chase Young is still out there. Maybe pair up Chase Young and Micah Parsons. There's a lot of different ways this can go. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible. You know what I mean? Mike Williams is still there. There's some guys out there. But let's talk about Bears free agency, baby. I know everybody in the chat's probably waiting for us to get to it. Breaking it down, free agency thus far. I'm going to name some guys. And I'm going to name two guys that nobody's really talking about, but it is important to the conversation that was a part of free agency. It just happened a lot sooner than people thought. So far, Ryan Poles last year, $100 million.
Yep.
Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, bringing back other pieces to this defense, Andrew Billings, extending him, bringing in DJ Moore. We bring in some guys and we're like, all right, maybe not this year, but
Mhm.
next year. We don't bring back Roquan Smith. We don't keep Khalil Mack. We don't keep any of these other guys. That's fine. But we have $80 million this year. So right now, as it sits, according to my boy Kev at 670 the score, who thank God he sent me this because I wasn't trying to do the numbers. Before we got Amin, I believe is how you pronounce his name. We had about $19 million. So I believe as it sits right now, we went from 80 to around $17 million left. So the Bears have about $17 million left, and we're going to look at it for what it is. Right now, the Bears' offseason moves thus far. We're going to start off with a trade. You trade a fifth-round pick for Ryan Bates, who's arguably a backup, but I think he could start on this offensive line. That's going to be 2 years left on his deal, $3.4 million annually. I believe that second year is a club option, if I'm not mistaken. Jalen Johnson, obviously the biggest free agency signing, or arguably the biggest free agency signing. 4 years, $76 million, but next to him is, to me, the second best signing, and that's Montez Sweat, extending him for 4 years, $98 million. DeAndre Swift follows that, 3 years, $24 million. Kevin Byard, 2 years, $15 million. That's one of my favorite signings so far. Then you look at it for what it is. You get Ripon, who a lot of people say I mispronounce his name, backup quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams. And I'll tell you what, I will apologize if Bears announcers say his name one time in 2024. If he is on the field and takes one snap in a meaningful game, I will apologize for saying his name wrong. Till then, tough shit. Next up, Ogbong Aminga, which I practiced that one. 1 year, $2 million. We have Pryor on a 1 year deal. Simone Biles' husband is on a 2 year deal, and Gerald Everett is 2 years for $12 million. Tony, I want to start with you. Saquon Barkley, Danielle Hunter, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, all these different big names. This is the list that we got. Are you, in year 3 of Ryan Poles, satisfied with this?
Yeah, the only one I could maybe argue I wish he would have been a little bit more aggressive for was Danielle Hunter. That's the only one. And I say that because Barkley coming from New York, he had to make up a lot for that offensive line being super poor. Also, very bad quarterback play. Didn't have even close to the wide receiver room that Chicago has, at least right now with DJ Moore, and potentially is going to have after the draft. And we can dive deeper into that later. But the best wide receiver that Barkley ever had was OBJ, and then he left basically as soon as Saquon got there. So that didn't last very long. So Saquon hasn't had quality guys there for him. He's had to make up for a lot of that very poor management, poor run organization that is the Giants currently. So Barkley, I like him not signing because I feel like that would have been an expensive hit for a guy that's potentially not going to be on the field as much as Bears fans want him to be. He's not going to make that big of an impact. Eckler, I could maybe see, but again, he's a guy that he's kind of getting older up in his age. Not that he's still not productive, but he's getting older. We don't know when Father Time's going to eventually catch up with him and kind of knock him down. Great pass catcher out of the backfield, though. So, I mean, I'll give him that. He's shifty, he's elusive, but kind of the same thing. He's going to have to make up a lot for the Bears O-line, at least as it sits currently. Again, we don't know what it's going to be like post-draft, but as it sits from last year, still needs a lot of work. Danielle Hunter, to me, is the only guy that's still young, has still been super productive. You pay him a lot of money. He can still be productive. You can still have him for a good long while and even potentially sign him to another contract in about 3 or 4 years, depending on how long you sign him for. So Danielle was the only one that I was like, man, I kind of wish he would have signed that. But like Derek.
You're muted, buddy.
There we go. Derrick Henry to me just kind of proves that he's your stereotypical running back. If he's been run into the ground so much and he's been hurt because he's been having to be run into the ground so much.
And where did he go? Where all running backs go to die. So I'm excited.
He went to Baltimore. He went to Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, another running back.
And we saw that Lamar. With them, though. To your point, like there's two sides of every coin, and then there's always that middle side, the luck, where it goes right down the middle. But I'm excited to see how it could potentially occur between him and Lamar Jackson. But I also understand the history of guys like Gus Edwards. Guys, help me out here. What's the other running back's name?
Let's see. You've had Gus Edwards. You've had Melvin Gordon went there
Dalvin
last
Cook.
year. He got cut.
Yep.
You've had
Dalvin Cook, like,
Dalvin Cook went there. You had also J.K. Dobbins. I mean,
J.K.
he's a
Dobbins was
rookie
another
rookie out of Ohio State.
That was
Yeah.
the one I couldn't think of. But it's like you look at these guys and you look at how they haven't been able to stay healthy behind that line, and you throw Derrick Henry in there, and yeah, it's better than what's going on in Tennessee right now, which I have no idea. And you don't say a word because we're not talking about this on this pod about what we talked about earlier. We're not getting into that. The Will Levis argument will be talked about one day, but we're gonna save that for Tony's pod.
We don't have to talk about Levis. Can we just acknowledge CJ Stroud is more him than Jordan Love will ever be?
100%. 100%. I'll stand on it with you. This episode is brought to you by Pepsi. But with that being said,
exactly.
Let's get into it though, man, because there were several different things I think occurred, and I'm reading the comments right now. It's a lot of people saying that they like the Swift signing. It's a lot of people saying that they think it wasn't the worst signing in the world. Now, what I will say is this: there's two sides to every coin. Like I said, just like with Derrick Henry, I see the athleticism, I see the elusiveness that we saw in Georgia from him. He is an absolute stud at the collegiate level. But just like Justin Fields, from the NFL level to the collegiate level, there is a gap. And there is that conversation of, are we going to meet you in the middle, or are we going to be leaning more on one side? Now, if we're leaning on towards the NFL side of production, that's great. But if I'm still talking about what you did at Georgia in 2018, 2019, 2020, I don't know how I really feel. And if you watch Hard Knocks, my big thing is if you do tune into Hard Knocks, amazing on HBO Max, you get the insights of what's going on. And obviously, you don't know everything, but you get to see a lot of young, promising stars. One thing I noticed when they did the Detroit Lions one, when they had DeAndre Swift, those running back coaches and Dan Campbell were on Swift's juegos. I mean, they were on his balls every day saying, you don't hit the right hole, you're not making the right reads, you don't have good vision. They're telling him this. And that's exactly why they move on from him with Jamal Williams, with David Montgomery, with Jahmyr Gibbs. They're going to, and even let's talk about Philly. Why does Philly overpay for Saquon? Because he's better than Swift. And that's my big thing with Swift. Injured 7 times in the last 4 years. Now, these aren't major injuries, but I will say this, the best ability is availability. And under this Bears offensive line, I don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. This was the first time in 4 years that he's even eclipsed 700 yards, nonetheless 1,000. Still only had 5 touchdowns, which every year, if you base off DeAndre Swift, he averages about 5 touchdowns rushing every year, whether that's in Detroit or whether that's in Philly or Chicago, what have you. Great passing guy. He's kind of like Austin Eckler. I think he's great in the passing game. I think that could definitely help out a Caleb Williams or a Justin Fields. But I want to paint this picture for you because this is where I was at with it. I made a video on it. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. Some people just didn't care. When I saw the move, it kind of made me think, all right, this is indicating to me that we're going to keep Justin Fields. And why I felt that way was because you look at it for what it is and you understand what Philly was able to do with a guy like DeAndre Swift. First down, red zone. That's when he's going to be in the ball game. He's not going to eat up yards on second or third. He's not going to try to get you the first. He's just one of those guys, first play out the gate or last play, you want him on the field. Other than that, you have Gainwell and Scott. And with that pairing of Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift as the 1 and the 2, mixed in with those 2 big-nosed guys coming in trying to eat yards to get the first down, that's the Bears running back room right now. You look, Justin Fields is your Jalen Hurts. You have DeAndre Swift, obviously RB1, and then the guys who are going to be your ground and pound trying to get that first down on second or third or even fourth, that's Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. So I looked at that and I said, if you told me the Bears were getting Saquon Barkley, to me, that indicates that you're getting Caleb Williams. If you get DeAndre Swift or a J.K. Dobbins, that's indicating to me that maybe you keep Justin Fields because Justin's going to still be that number 1 run option, and DeAndre Swift will follow that for a great 1-2 punch. Where am I thinking too deep into this, Tone, or do you think that's kind of reasonable to have a conversation about?
I think it's reasonable, and I agree because you notice I even put that in the chat too when you had talked about the Swift signing. I was like, man, I remember watching a lot of his film and with the Lions. I remember watching a lot of the games, and you would see the hole even from like the TV standpoint. And I'm like, it is right there, and he's like dancing, he's like shuffling behind the line, waiting for it to open on the left side. I'm like, dude, it's on the right. All you gotta do is just turn your head and just go, and you'll get positive yardage. But I'll say this too, and I don't know if you happen to watch the video I sent you in the group chat or not. Ryan Clark kind of broke it down on ESPN about why he thinks, the Bears aren't going to go for Justin. And if you remember, I said this 2 weeks ago when we talked about this with Rob Scott, when we were like, man, who are the Bears going to go with? Are they going to go with Caleb? Or are they going to go with Justin? I said, watch, wait about 2 weeks until NFL free agency opens up, see where everybody else lands. We'll kind of have our answer then, because you notice we heard a lot of initially, there's a lot of potential first round, maybe even second round picks that they'll trade for Justin. Maybe he goes to Atlanta. Atlanta's more in on Kirk. They end up signing Kirk. Pittsburgh goes with Russ. So all these teams now have their quarterback, and it's like, the trade market has kind of gone down. And then we really haven't heard anything since. So to me, that kind of shows Chicago went from, okay, well, we wanted to see what we could get, because I think Chicago also kind of tested it to see how much can we get for Justin? Like, is there somebody out there willing to give us a decent price for Justin Fields or not? If there is, okay, yeah, maybe we'll take Caleb. If not, we'll roll with who we got, and we can build a pretty solid team. Again, right. if you trade back a little bit, whether it's with New England, whether it's with Washington, to get Caleb, you get a pretty good king's ransom for it. You can still get Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, whoever you want to build as far as your wide receiver room goes. Then I think you're solid. So to me, yeah, I would picture it as this is more of a keep Justin Fields, build around him. Because again, and I know you've probably seen it, Jay Cutler has advocated to keep Fields. Brian Urlacher has advocated to keep Fields. I mean, obviously all the Bears fans last year advocated to keep Justin Fields.
I will say this, Tone, we're actually wrong on that one. Last season, Brian Urlacher said they wanted to keep Fields, but he just came out on a pod and said he wants Caleb. Lance Briggs said he wanted to keep Justin Fields. But I guess Urlacher's kind of switched up. I just saw it the other day. I forgot to send it to you, but I was kind of like, because I was making content saying like even Urlacher wants him, and then I guess he doesn't. So it's interesting to see like that kind of switch between one season and how he's kind of translated that. But I'm curious to get your opinion on it. When we talk about Danielle Hunter, I think people can make a conversation about how much Justin Fields is going to make, whether that's $38 million on a franchise tag or $25 million on a fifth-year option, if they decide to take that. Obviously, this year, I believe he makes a little over $2 million, something like that. But I think at the end of the day, you're kind of looking at it from the perspective of where are we going to be 3 to 4 years from now? So I'm going to paint a picture. I'm paint a picture because this is where I'm at right now. I look at how Ryan Poles brings in arguably 6 backups and then brings in DeAndre Swift, brings back Jalen Johnson, brings in Montez Sweat, and then brings in Kevin Byard. 6 backups. Yeah. And I think the reasoning for that is understanding that you're going to have to pay Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, but if you draft Caleb, then you can get Danielle Hunter because it's a 2-year deal. He'll be gone by the time you have to pay Caleb anything. He'll be gone by the time you have to pay Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze or whoever. You know what I mean? Malik Neighbors, whatever. The majority of these rookies, the Tyreek Stevensons, those guys are going to be free agents 2 to 4 years from now. Yeah. Justin Fields is going to be presumably in 2 years. So I'm excited to see what's going to potentially happen. Wow, that's crazy. Dylan Cease might go to the Padres. White Sox L. Common White Sox L. But with that being said, I think when you look at it for what it is, you understand that Justin Fields is going to have to get extended by the Bears within the next year. They're going to have to figure out if they're taking his 5th-year option, which is a $25 million hit by, what would you say, training camp. They're going to have to make that decision because this is year 4. Same thing with Chase Young last year where they declined it. It was kind of like, man, are you going to do it or you're not? And it's kind of smart of them not to. But I'm curious to see why he spent the way he spent this year. Depth is an amazing thing, especially for the Bears. Offensive line, you don't know about Tevin Jenkins. You don't know about Braxton Jones. You don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Bates. It's great to keep adding guys like Pryor, guys like Bates, and then obviously through the draft. But to me, it would make more sense to spend money on a Saquon Barkley or a Calvin Ridley if you have a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. The way they strategically set this up, it looks like they're keeping Justin Fields to me. How do you feel about just overall the contracts between Justin and Caleb and how Ryan Poles moved? Do you think there's any indication there that you're swinging one way or the other?
I agree because if you remember the last time we talked about this, kind of the vicious cycle that the Bears have gone through the last couple of drafts and last couple of years with quarterbacks, You had Matt Nagy. He gets, Mitchell Trubisky, who really wasn't quote unquote his guy, makes it work with him. He's out. Matt stays. He gets Justin. Well, Justin stays. Matt's out. Now you get Eberflus in. Justin's not really his guy, and now pretty much we're coming back to the same point of, are Fields and Eberflus going to be connected or not? Which
Right.
realistically they kind of should be, because it doesn't really make sense to have a guy that you're already have kind of said he's a little bit on the hot seat as far as if he's going to be our head coach next year or not. Draft a quarterback, and then your quarterback goes through the same thing that Mitch went through, same thing that Justin went through. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. So I think for Ryan, he's doing a smart thing by kind of A, saving his job, and B, setting himself up for success. Because again, like I talked about, if you don't draft Caleb's and you build this team up for the future, you can at least then make the argument for saying, hey, we have an extremely attractive spot because all of our guys are already under contract.
Mhm.
We have a bunch of rookie players that are more than likely going to be successes in the NFL, so we're not going to have to pay them for a minute. This is a perfect opportunity for us to be aggressive, go get somebody in free agency, go get somebody in the draft that we think is going to come in and immediately make an impact and make us Super Bowl contenders. So to me, I think it's pretty smart. And again, like we talked about, and I know everybody who I've at least talked to with separately that's not you, Mike, has kind of,
Yeah.
hated on me. They've really hated and crapped on Justin Fields for, he's had all these chances. He's, 10 and 25 in his,
Right.
time starting. It's like, okay, but who has he had on his team?
Right.
Like, he hasn't had anybody of viability. He also can't control when, you look at last year with Denver when they were up ahead. Same with Cleveland. Like, they
Right.
were in competition, but that defense started to fail.
Mhm.
Okay, there's only so much Justin can do with that,
I mean,
especially
literally
on the other side.
Hail Mary throw to Darnell Mooney to win the game against Cleveland, and
And he,
Darnell Mooney has the ball in his hands and he drops it. But shout out Eric Mooney. God bless him. Amazing time with the Bears. He was there through the dark ages, 1,000-yard season with Justin Fields
mhm.
in his rookie year. Shout out Mooney for getting that bag, $39 million over 3 years with the Atlanta Falcons. Which, hey, listen, when I saw Mooney go there, I was like, oh man, could Justin go there? But obviously, Kirk Cousins is there now. He just made that official.
They say, can I make two quick announcements on that? One, Joe Flacco is apparently supposed to sign with the Colts to be Anthony Richardson's backup.
Just on
So
that, yeah.
apparently he's going to be rolling. Also, Big Kirko is the greatest businessman in NFL history, because Big Kirko be getting these giant contracts with guaranteed money for being mid.
No,
Like,
yeah,
no disrespect for to Kirk, but let's be realistic. This man is as mid gets. It's not really him leading the Minnesota Vikings to 13-4, not this past season, but season before last. But that defense being good, and really what Philly had this year of, they weren't really winning. It was other teams hurting themselves,
right.
and they just were able to hold on just long enough to be able to get that win.
We also got to throw in, and obviously Kirk plays a part in this, but Justin Jefferson having damn near 2,000 yards that season as well when they went 13
Mm-hmm.
4. Jettas has been absolutely crazy. But you brought up a great point before we get into the division as a whole, because the NFC North to me is one of the most promising divisions in all of
Mm-hmm.
football right now, in my opinion. They are getting better and better every single day. And even with that being said, I know we're talking right now about the Bears not making huge moves, but that defense was top 5 towards the end of last year. We led the league in sacks and interceptions. Like, this is a defense that's ready to win. And even
Mm-hmm.
if you go through the draft, bring in a top tier pass rusher at 9, or in the second or third round, maybe you trade up to the second round. Who knows? I think you're looking at a Bears defense that's going to keep them in conversation, like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen from years past. We've always heard about Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson. We've always heard about the Detroit Lions with Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson and all these other guys. But at the end of the day, the Bears were always known for their defense, and it kind of feels the same way yet again. I think the offense, at least for this very moment, is going to be the second fiddle to the Chicago Bears identity until maybe a Justin Fields figures it out, or a Caleb Williams comes into fruition to what he's going to potentially be, or maybe not. But we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to be really interesting. But for Kirk, as much as I would love to say that Atlanta made the best move possible, I think Kirk made a great business decision going there. 45 million a year. I can't even be mad at it. Almost
Mhm.
fully guaranteed money or fully guaranteed close to that. I think you're having those conversations like, yeah, Kirk's going to be great in Atlanta. And I think in that division, they're definitely going to win division titles. But
Mhm.
with that being said, the drop off in how Kirk Cousins is going to perform is going to be interesting to me. Can he continue to be an above average quarterback? Because we've seen him be very consistent year in and year out in the regular season with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook in his prime, and
Mhm.
obviously adding TJ Hawkinson to that. You have McConnell as your OC and your head coach, and obviously they weren't great with Zimmerman, but they got a lot of stuff done. I'm curious to see, though, when you go from Jettas and Addison and TJ and Dalvin to London and Mooney and Pitts, who people always say, what about Pitts' rookie year with Matt Ryan? He had 1,000 yards in his rookie year. He had 1 touchdown. I don't care if you have 2,000 yards. If you're not getting in the red zone, that's one of the biggest things for a tight end to do. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Travis Kelce, cool. Maybe you're leading the league in receptions. Maybe you're leading the league in yards. But are you scoring tutties? That's what's going to be important in that position for them. I think the offense in Atlanta is going to be ran through Bijan Robinson. I don't think that's a hot take. The fact that they didn't utilize him whatsoever with Arthur Smith just paints me the picture of what it's going to look like with Russ and Najee in
Mhm.
Pittsburgh this year. It's going to be bad. I don't care what anybody says. Shout out to my boy Chach because I know he's a diehard Pittsburgh fan. He deserves better. I think it's a good roster. And they just gave up Deontay Johnson for a 7th-round pick, 6th-round pick.
Yeah, to
And
the Panthers.
Bears low key should have been on that, but whatever. Dude, Deontay Johnson, I would have been in
Mhm.
on it. There were
Mhm.
even rumors, Tone. I don't know if you heard them, that if Justin Fields were to go to Pittsburgh, the conversation. Now, I don't know if there's validity to this. This was just the rumors that the Bears would want a pick and Deontay Johnson. And
Mhm.
at first, I was like, no way Pittsburgh would do that. But now looking at it, maybe there was truth to that because you look at that and say, well, obviously he was available. Obviously he
Mhm.
was being shopped. So maybe that was a conversation. Maybe they were just like, nah, we don't want Fields. Maybe that was the thing where they were like, we'll give you Johnson, but we just don't want Fields. And Poles might have been like, well, I'm not willing to swap one without the other. But the
Right.
point of this long tangent is I'm watching Minnesota get better.
Mhm.
Sam Darnold, whatever. I know you made an argument earlier. Hey, I got a little better under Shanahan. That may be true.
Mhm.
But I think we all believe it's going to be Michael Penix, either Bo Nix. Maybe they trade up to get a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May, JJ McCarthy. They're going to get a quarterback in the first round. And by doing so, I think Minnesota solidified themselves in bringing back Justin Jefferson. Because
Yeah.
you couldn't have Kirk Cousins and Jettas. That's just financially it wasn't going to happen, especially now that we know Kirk's getting 45 mil a year, and according to Jettas, he wants to break the bank.
Yep.
That's terrifying. So we'll see
Yes.
what happens with that. But when you see this young Minnesota Vikings offense bringing in Aaron Jones, you see as much as you hate him, Jordan Love and them boys going crazy, bringing in Josh Jacobs, bringing in one of the best safeties in the game. And then the Detroit Lions continue to have success. They retain Ben Johnson. How deep do you think the NFC North is going to be in the next 2 years?
I think it's going to be a lot deeper than what people expect because I know a lot of people right now, or at least to me, the attention is on the AFC North. Like the AFC North is absolutely stacked. Like Cleveland has quietly rebuilt themselves in the offseason
Mhm.
since they don't have the draft picks. Cincinnati has actually to me had a pretty good free agency as far as who they've brought in. They cut Joe Mixon.
Yep.
Um,
I thought
but
didn't they trade Joe?
yeah, they traded Joe to the Texans, who also
Pounder?
Texans. Oh my God, the Texans have had probably the best free agency out of any of the teams in the NFL
Championship? NFC
by
or
far.
AFC championship next year?
I wouldn't doubt it with him with CJ Stroud.
Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter? Oh,
And you got to think you got CJ with let's see, you got CJ and they got a wide receiver too, didn't they?
what is in free agency?
I think so. Hold on, I can
I
tell you here
can't
it is.
remember free agency, but I know they got Meche.
No,
The
Mechie, yeah,
Yeah, Mechie. I'm still in on Mechie. I still think
Te-
after he had cancer, I think he needed a couple years to really just get back into his body. But I'm excited for him. I'm excited for what was that rookie wide
Tank
receiver they had?
Tank Dell.
Yep, they got a bunch of guys that I think you're just looking at and you're going to say you bring in Joe Mixon to that as well. Obviously, I
Mm-hmm.
think the ideal was Saquon, but I mean Joe Mixon is no scrub either. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about it. I'm excited for what they're going to be able to do.
And plus, think about it. They still have a couple draft picks. They could go get, Brian Thomas out of LSU. They could go get another wide receiver and be big time. Or, because I had mentioned this to Kenny the other day when we were talking about potential spots for T. Higgins. Because think if T.
Mm,
Higgins went down to Houston.
mm.
Oof. Ooh.
Do you,
But
from a business standpoint, do you take that risk if you're Cincinnati? Because that's in conference. You're gonna
mhm,
have to see T if it comes down to it. Would you? Because that to me is like trading Keenan Allen to the Kansas City
the
Chiefs.
Chiefs,
You know
right?
what I mean? It's like, nah, fuck that. No, we can't do that. To me, if you have a dog like T. Higgins and you know he's upset with you, yeah, man, I'm sending you as far north as possible.
Here is where I would say it they don't necessarily have to, but from a business perspective, I would say it's a good deal.
Mhm.
Here's why I say it. Because if you look at Indy and you look at Houston, because to me, those are probably the two best spots that T. Higgins could go to, that he's going to be the number one, if not a complement to a number one, and he's going to have a major immediate impact on the team. You got to get something back because to me, this is one of those. If they didn't have to pay him and he was just like, nah, I'm not going to play, that's one thing.
Right.
They got to pay him. They got to pay him $22 million, whether he plays or not. So, me, if I'm a businessman, I'm like, look, if you unhappy with me, you're not going to play. And I got to sit here and eat 22 million.
Yeah.
I got to get some type of a return for you.
Right.
Now, whether that's in conference or not is what it is.
Well,
To me,
I was. Oh, my bad. My bad. Please finish.
no, you're good. Um, and plus, you have to think about it too. More than likely, these teams are going to finish pretty high anyway with that draft pick.
That's where I was going.
No, the return might not be as high. But here's the other thing I'll argue too. How many times have we seen top draft picks be absolute busts,
Mm,
and you can find gems later on in the hit round, like Coach Bennett once said, and it stuck with me ever since. The picks don't matter until they actually play out.
right.
You can have all 32 first round picks in a row, but if you make the wrong pick on the wrong dudes, you got 32 wasted first round picks, and it don't
100%.
mean nothing.
100%.
So,
And I think my big thing, and you know how vocal I've been from 2022 on, I said I understood. I think all Bears fans, if you're in the chat reading this right now, I think we all understood that there was no way in hell that you were going to be able to pay Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So as a Bears fan, I've been vocal the last couple years. If T. Higgins becomes available, whether that's in free agency or whether that's via trade, I wanted to go after him. Now I'm in a situation where it's like, I'm not quite sure if the Bears could afford to make that trade at this very point in time, because you understand that not only are you going to have to extend T. Higgins, DJ Moore is going to be off his contract in 2 seasons as well. Then you're going to
mhm,
look at the draft compensation that the Bears currently have. As crazy as it sounds, trading the number 1 overall pick last year for multiple first round picks and a second, we don't have that many picks this year after the first round. We have the first round pick, the 9th overall pick, or the first overall pick, the 9th overall pick. I believe we have a 3rd round pick. And then after that, I believe it's anything from 6 down. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, we only have 4 or 5 picks, and they're not in the 2nd or 3rd. So you're going to be curious to see what's going to potentially happen with the Bears moving forward. I don't know if T. Higgins is a realistic conversations, especially now that we're sitting around $15 to $17 million left in free agency this year.
mhm.
Especially if you look at number 9 overall, would you rather pay T. Higgins or bank on a guy like Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors? Or, hey, even if you trade down 1 to 3, would you bank on a Marvin Harrison Jr. on a 4-year rookie deal before T. Higgins in an extension? You're giving up draft compensation and you're extending him. So it's definitely hard. But one guy I want to talk about with you, I know we've been all over the place, but this one's a little interesting to me. Gerald Everett on a 2-year, $12 million deal.
Mhm.
Now, if we've all played fantasy football, we understand that Gerald Everett, for the majority, is not rosterable, not startable. He's one of
Mhm.
those guys that you really only pick up on a bye week.
Yeah.
But, I think there's potential there for what they're going to ask him to do. Now, I don't know what that means for Robert Tonyan, who's still under contract as well, but I would imagine that makes Tonyan tight end 3. Gerald is going to be tight end 2. And what I think this does for the Chicago Bears is it puts Cole Kmet in a situation to where he can just be a playmaker. He can just go out there and get yards and get tutties and do his little baseball swing. You know what I mean? Like, I think for the last 3 years, I've watched Cole Kmet get underutilized because of the fact that this offensive line couldn't protect Justin Fields. And now that you have a guy like Gerald Everett, who maybe in the pass game isn't going to be the most consistent guy or most utilized guy, but he's definitely one of those guys that can block defenders. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see him really just be in the blocking game, whether that's in the run block or the pass block. I think he's going to be huge. So I think that's going to free up Cole Kmet to continue to be what we believe to be as a top 10 tight end in this league, whether that's with Caleb or Justin. I think this signing is a lot bigger than people kind of underestimate
Mhm.
because they're kind of underestimating it right now. You're kind of in a situation to where they're like, why did we even do that? But if you look at Robert Tonyan, he's not blocking, and we saw him in the Cleveland game. He's not catching. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you bring in Gerald, hey, you're great at this, and you're going to allow Cole to be great at this. Let him do X, you do Y, you do Z, and it's going to be perfect. And then
Mhm.
Robert can just stand there with his long, luscious hair and be beautiful. But right now for you, 2 tight ends, double stack, Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. Do you like that? And what do you think you can do in the red zone with 2 tight ends like that?
I like it, and I'll say this about Gerald, and it's gonna sound bad, but hear me out.
I'll
Eh,
hear you.
Gerald kind of reminds me of that blunt in a Snoop Dogg circle. Like he gets passed around to everybody. Like everybody take a hit. Like it's gonna be good. Like it's gonna be solid. It's gonna do what you need it to do. But he get passed around a lot. Like he's been with the Chargers. He's been with the Seahawks. He's been with the Saints. He's with the Rams. He's been with
Okay,
everybody. He's
I'm
been with
with you.
everybody. But he he does just enough to where he's solid, but they're like, man, we don't really feel like paying you top dollar. You produce. Don't get me wrong. I've watched him. Like he'll have you some good catches here and there, but like you said, he's a great blocking tight end. And if there's anybody that we've watched over the years who was probably the most famous for using a two power tight end system that made it work absolutely beautifully for years
Mhm.
in New England. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to say that Cole is the next Gronk or anything like that because that's
And I'm
crazy.
hoping neither of them is the next Aaron Hernandez, but
Yeah. Woo,
for their
woo,
sake and my own, I live here. I'm in the
woo.
city. I don't need to be missing.
Say that'd be killer if one of them did. That'd be
Oh, get out of here.
but but no, I mean, I like the move. I think it's going to be impactful, and again, it adds another extension to again that very porous offensive line like we talked about. That's been one of
Right.
the things that has really hurt the Bears. It's hurt Justin, and that's why we saw Justin have to take off so many times. That whole line is terrible. So just to have that other guy there as a blocker, like you said, free up commit, and that's kind of what I like about the tight end routes too. Is you can have him there be for that block for a little bit, and then he can break away. Nobody covers him or they forget to cover him. And if Justin can see that, that could potentially make a play, and it can even open up more holes for even Swift if he tries to dump the ball off in the backfield. So
No,
I don't hate the signing.
I agree. I agree. And also, I want to give a quick shout out, real quick. I wasn't going to pull up a lot of the comments today, so we can clip a lot of this. So I do apologize. But Alan Bratcher is in my comments right now. And if people don't know Alan, Alan does amazing things in the Bears community. Alan, I will read this comment when you get back on the mic. He's been taking a little hiatus for a while.
Uh-huh.
I need him back in the Bears community. I need him back and better than ever because he's one of the best to do it. But I want to get into it with you, man, because you know me talking about secondaries all day long. I think it's one of the most important phases of a defense. We talk about the 3 phases. We talk about the trenches, talk about the linebackers, and obviously you talk about the secondary. But the secondary to me is what's going to make everybody else's job 10 times easier. I look at the Bears secondary right now, which is a super young secondary right now. They are averaging the age between 24 to 26 years old. So it's a beautiful place if you're the Chicago Bears right now in this secondary. You just locked up Jalen Johnson. Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson, who, by the way, I will continue to say this. Tyreek Stevenson was a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. He was one of the best rookie corners in the entire league next to Witherspoon and company. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, you bring in these guys. You have Jaquan Brisker. He's a hard-nosed, hard-hitting safety. Now you bring in Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard's here on a 2-year, $15 million deal. Tony, I know a lot of people said he had a down year in Philly, but he's still ranked 11th in Pro Football Focus amongst all safeties. He was in the 30s in the top 100 in the NFL in 2022. This is a guy who, just like you said, that Snoop Dogg blunt, maybe he's been passed around a little bit, but he is effective. And I think when you bring in a guy like that and take away Eddie Jackson, who couldn't hit water if he fell off the Titanic on a cold April night, I think you're having a real conversation that the Bears have a top 5 secondary in all of football right now, and arguably it's top 3 by the end of this season. Am I crazy for saying that?
I'm gonna say a little bit,
Mhm.
only because, and I only say this because of having watched a lot of Philly last year. Because man, did I have to spew a lot. I had to unmask for Eagles fans the crap that they were trying to sell people. I'm like, no, y'all trash and y'all know it. They went and got Byard to try and fix their defensive problems. Now, obviously, that was a lot more than just one position, one player. Like we found that out. Obviously, they even went and even though he trash talked Philly when he went to Detroit, talking about how much he hated the fans, he goes back and signs a massive contract with Philly in CJ Gardner Johnson for anybody
Did you read
that
the
don't
apology
know.
with me?
So to me, there's a lot of question marks with Byard. Is his confidence kind of shaken? There's only so much he can do if the corner is blown coverage, blown assignment, and the same with the strong safety as well. So he's the only one that I'm kind of like, I've got a little bit of questions on as far as what his production value is going to be. Now, if he can get back to where he was with Tennessee, I agree. I think he's one of the top 5 safeties in the league by far. But I'm gonna say another kind of crazy hot take. To me, the only true safety in the NFL that has stood out as number 1 for I'm gonna say about the last 3-4 years is Minka Fitzpatrick out of Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
He's been about the only one, because to me he gives a good like mix of both. Like I know everybody's trying to say Honey Badger. Honey Badger to me ain't been good
Well,
since
I
like
was gonna say
2018.
Jesse Bates. I was gonna say Jesse Bates has been absolutely phenomenal. I think he's just kind of, where is he right now? Atlanta?
Atlanta, yeah, he had like 2 good years, and then he right when since he was like, man, we can't afford to pay you because we got to pay Joe, we got to pay Jamar, we
Mhm.
we can't afford the money you gonna ask.
Can't even pay
So
2, like, you know what I mean? So, but I think people forget about Jesse, but I like the take you just said. I like it a lot, especially Jamal Adams just got released, if I'm not mistaken. So,
and I'm not gonna lie, another kind of maybe controversial hard take, but I think a lot of people agree. Most overrated bum safety,
yeah.
because he's not a safety, he's a linebacker.
Yeah,
He's a linebacker. He's not a safety. Like when I watched how the Jets used him, and then I'm like, okay, you're not really playing a true safety role. You're just playing a
cover 0
blitzing
all the
linebacker.
time. Yeah.
Like you're not really doing what I would expect you. Or if I was a fan of that team, like no, when I have a safety, I want you to be able to go and cover. I don't care if you can go sack the quarterback. Can you stop a wide receiver from running 25 yards on our
Right.
secondary or not?
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And like we play flag football, me and my guys, all the time. And we were playing on Lakeshore Drive all year long, and it was absolute fucking madness, bro. It was an absolute blast. The first 2 games, man, I'm playing safety. Everybody knows my whole life I played running back, safety. I'm 5'8".
Mhm.
What do you want from me? But no, man. Like in all seriousness, we're playing. I'm playing safety, and I'm like, man, I'm bored. I am bored out of my mind because no one's throwing the ball deep. No one's doing this. And then we start playing cover 0, and I literally felt like Jamal Adams. I
Mhm.
literally was like, "Oh man, this is great. I'm getting sack after sack after sack." But really, I wasn't. I was just another lineman the whole year. You know what I mean? I wasn't playing it the way I wanted to. But I know Tony's got to bounce out of here in a little bit. I'm about to go live after 10:30 p.m. We're gonna be going, or after 10 p.m. We're gonna be going live with Kevin Lapka of Bears Nation Podcast and 670 The Score Chicago. We're gonna be talking to him more about why he thinks I'm an idiot for not thinking DeAndre Swift is an amazing free agency signing, but really quickly before we get out of here, I got one more question for the great Tony Hollinsworth.
What's up,
Tony,
buddy?
right now, as it sits, 1 week from today, Caleb Williams will have his pro day with the Chicago Bears. Are you excited about the pro day? Are you excited for more Caleb Williams and Bears news? Or are you just completely on the other side of the fence and you want Justin Fields?
So you know me, I've been stuck on Jalen Fields for a while. I'm gonna say this about pro days though. Pro days to me, they don't do anything. To me, that's just extra media coverage. That's just extra stuff for teams to have names in the news when it comes to drafting and whatnot. Because you think about it, yeah, you can have a pro day where you have a guy like Caleb throw a seam route to an uncovered wide receiver indoors in perfect condition, no pressure, no blitzing, nothing. And oh my God, look at that deep throw that he threw for like 55 yards down the field. Okay, cool. But what are you going to look like when you have an Aaron Donald running in your face? What are you going to look like when you have to deal with, at the time when you would have had to deal with Daniil Hunter in your face rushing you from Minnesota? What are you going to do when you have Aiden Hutchinson running at you in Michigan, from Detroit?
Fair
Like
enough.
that, like that to me, it's one of those, the film speaks more for itself. And I kind of feel the same way about the combine too. Like it kind of gives other guys highlights that maybe don't get it on the national coverage because they don't get that coverage, whether it's from the school that they're at, the conference that they're in, etc. It kind of helps them. But cool, you can bench press 225 35 times. Can you make a block? Can
Right.
you catch a ball? Like, do you have butterfingers? Like, what are you giving me for the team? That's my big thing. To me, the film speaks for a lot of it. The combine can kind of somewhat clean that up and whatnot. And I know it's not just for Caleb, some of the wide receivers can, but again, if you're an uncontested wide receiver with the quarterback you played with all year and you just doing a simple fly route or corner route and you can't catch that ball, I'm gonna have a lot more questions. I'm gonna have a lot more questions.
Most definitely. Most definitely. But Tony, man, appreciate you for being here, bro. Appreciate you always tuning in, talking Dow Bears.
Stop
Make
Bears.
sure you guys check out Tony on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and everywhere else on Inside the Hoosier Mind, Facebook as well on Tony Hollinsworth. I don't believe there's a Facebook page for Inside the Hoosier Mind.
Yes, there is.
There is a Facebook page.
There is.
So sorry, so sorry. Inside the Hoosier Mind on all social media platforms. Make sure you check out my guy. He's about to go live in a couple minutes, so we're gonna see what Tony's got cooking for tonight. Tony, real quick, what are the topics tonight?
So I got the big dog Yul Hyman on, who is a diehard Giants fan. I want his reaction to letting Xavier McKinney go to Green Bay, letting Saquon go to the Eagles. The fact that they did get Brian Burns, so I mean they got a little bit of positivity, but they said that we don't want to pay Saquon, we want to play Danny Dimes. So how does he feel about that moving forward? What's he think they're going to do with the draft with the number 6 pick, if I remember correctly, or number 5, one of the two?
I think
Uh, are they 6? Because I think it's Chargers 5, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are they going to do? Where does T. Higgins potentially go? That's going to be one of the topics that we cover. What do we think about Russell Wilson to the Steelers and whatnot? So there's a lot of good topics we're going to dive pretty deep into. And if the Texans are going to be a championship run team, and for the fun, if anybody wants to know, because obviously being a fan of Da Bears, we're going to poke a little bit of fun at apparently our next potential vice president in Aaron Rodgers moving on from the Jets and becoming, vice president in the White House. We're going to poke a little bit of fun at that because why not?
Love to see it. Love to see it. Until then, we'll check you guys out later. Make sure you hit that follow button at the shy.kid, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. I'll check you guys out later. Peace.
I love you.